This is The Brandon Smith Show, and of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of the show is one singular thing, and that is to help you live a life that much more free from dysfunction. So I'm super excited about our topic today. We are going to be talking about communicating to connect. And more specifically, I've seen in the workplace, and our guest is definitely going to enlighten us on this, so many challenges with just basic connection as human beings, whether it's with a boss, a coworker, direct report, or just others we've got a team with. And that little lack of basic connection causes real massive problems if we can't kind of master that. So while this is a fundamental topic, it is fundamental. We've got to kind of master this and be able to use this to be able to get to the next level. So to help us on this journey, I have the fantastic fortune of having Melissa Gordon join us. Melissa, how are you?
I'm great.
I am thrilled to have you on here. So I want to make sure I get your title right before we get into this. So not only are you president of Echelon Communicate, you're also the creator of Speak Like You Mean It.
That's right.
Okay, so we were talking and jamming a little bit before the show about this topic. And I mean, you had me at hello on this because this was just fantastic. And I can't wait to dive in. But before we do that, share with our listeners and viewers a little bit more about what you all do today. And then I'm just curious, how'd you get doing this?
Love it. Well, it's so great to be here. Echelon Communicate, our premier product is called Speak Like You Mean It. And it's really, we help business leaders and professional speakers, public speakers, master the art of effective communication. So for a business leader, it's really about making things happen. So using your voice to make things happen. Yeah. And for leaders, that's a big job. We have the one-to-one conversation. We have the one-to-a-few, where we're leading a team or motivating a team. And then we have the one-to-many. How do we drive an enterprise? How do we achieve the vision? How do we communicate the strategy? So that's the business leader. And then the public speaker really wants to make something happen using their voice as well, but it's less of a concern. I have to make the numbers, I have to get results, but it's really the same elements that make someone effective in either setting.
Fantastic. So it sounds like, in a nutshell, your group is really about helping people, no matter what role they're in, either as leaders or as public speakers, use their voice to be that much more effective at motivating, inspiring, educating, compelling folks to move forward in a productive way.
That's exactly it. I want to write that down.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, I feel honored to have an expert in this. So how did you get doing this? What's the journey that led you into this?
Well, my Chapter 1 career was as a business filmmaker, so doing big, splashy corporate branding films, the sales rally, the shareholder meeting. You know, our film is playing, and then Jeff Immelt would take the stage. GE was a client of ours for a long time. So IBM, GE, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, lots of big companies. And so I did many, many interviews. I also did lots of man-on-the-street interviews with employees.
But, I mean, just that whole process, the team that does that, and how hard that is. I imagine that's got to be so difficult when you've got hours of footage and you got to say we need 2.5 minutes.
Hours and hours of footage, and if you let the interview run according to the sheet that you got from the client, there'd be lots about the features and benefits of the product, lots about, you know, why these elements are better than those. And that stuff never was the stuff that made it into the final film. It was always when somebody stepped up and got lit up, when they got passionate about the thing they were talking about. So less questions about, so what are the features and benefits of this product that rock the market, and more about, gee, this is a great career opportunity for you. This product is taking off. What are you so excited about this product? And they'd be like, oh, I can't wait to tell you. And the light would come on. And so I started to change the way I did interviews to intentionally bring out those moments. I also found that sometimes people would be so passionate about something, they'd give a really long answer that we didn't have time for. So I started to say, I hear these highlights in what you're saying. Is that what you mean? Ah, yeah, perfect. So can you give me that back? It's this and this and this. So it's the passion and performance, and it's the message, getting the message right to where we can all grab it. That's what I spent 20 years doing, and then getting a lot of requests to, can you coach me for a video interview? Can you coach me for a media interview? And I got to this moment in middle age where I said, what do I love the most about what I'm doing? And I thought, it's that time when the light goes on in someone, and you see them step into their authentic self and give a great message. I just can't get enough of that. So I'm going to spend more time doing that.
I love it. That's great. And then the courage to be able to say, yeah, I really want to do what I love. I want to do that thing that connects that passion and energy in people and that heart of the message.
Well, I really think people are at their best when they're authentic, and it can be kind of a buzzword right now, but authentic really is that North Star. When can I be most myself? And most business leaders are not going to go to acting school to, figure out how to be compelling. But what I found is that the best, fastest way to the best performance is that authentic place, getting your words in your mouth so you love your message, and that handles a lot of the trouble with presentation skills.
I see. If we had time for 2 shows, I would dive into authenticity right now because it's like right there, and I really want to jump on it because it requires so much courage to be truly authentic. But our topic today is all about connection. So now let's dive into this thing because I think everybody can relate to this. Everybody can relate to either what it feels like to truly connect, which is such a wonderful feeling, but also how frustrating it can be when you don't fully connect with the people around you. So what have you seen in that world, and what are some ways we can start to overcome some of that?
I think there are a lot of dynamics going on in the workplace, and we don't have a lot of tools for how to navigate them. In terms of just, let me get you, let me get where you are. Many of us want to rush to a problem-solving mode. How can we get this figured out and get on with it? But if you work with someone over and over and over, which I did as a filmmaker, you're traveling all over the world in many long hours, and then the edit room is many, many hours. And you're really working with someone. There are all kinds of little dynamics there. Some of those dynamics come from the family background. Some of them come from the experience. Some of it is hierarchy. But what I'm really interested in, tools to help people connect fundamentally. And my favorite thing is when somebody can just say, okay, I get you, I get it. Not sure what to do about it in this moment, but I get it. And that's what we're really going for when we're talking about connection.
So it sounds, when you say that, if I'm sitting here listening to it, I say, gosh, well, yeah, like that sounds so easy. But we keep screwing this up. So what are some of the classic ways that you see us screw this up?
Yeah, well, I have a hit parade of common mistakes that are made in the workplace, and one of those is, I feel threatened. My share, my way, and my part has been threatened, so I kind of push off from the table. It's kind of invisible if you're a business leader who's not paying attention, but it's just subtle, so I've taken myself out of the game. I'm not going to bring my best brains. I'm not going to bring my innovation. I'm not going to be vulnerable because I know it's not safe here. I've shoved away. So the savvy...
So physically, when you see people physically pull away from the table.
Yes, when you see people physically withdraw from the table. The other thing you can observe is, did they go silent? And that one is a little tricky because we've got introverts and extroverts, and the extroverts will tend to dominate the conversation. So as a business leader or as a team member, you want to pay attention to that and say, so what's happening there? Has there been a disconnection? Have we lost our connection? Or is there some other reason that this person isn't participating? In diversity, all players participating, we get the best ideas. So it's profound to notice, are we in connection? Are we in disconnection? Does something need to be repaired? And can we do something with that?
Yeah. So I've heard and seen and read a lot of research around psychological safety. And it sounds like that's really what you're saying. Is there a level of psychological safety in the room where people feel free and comfortable to fully engage and bring their full self? Or do they feel threatened in some way and then they push away or get quiet?
Yeah, so psychological safety, you're probably thinking of what I'm thinking of, the Google study that came out about a year ago. It was at Google, which to me is the land of the hipsters. We're the coolest. We're so confident. No, what they said is the single most important success driver is psychological safety. When I saw that, I said, you know what? We've got a great tool that creates psychological safety. So our mode, again, is often about problem solving, but psychological safety requires time. It requires eye contact. It requires a deep desire to go there. So am I for you? If you're on my team, am I really for you? Or am I really about the results? So we often get into a continuum that we're balancing. People on one side, results on the other. Tasks on the one side, outcomes on the other one side, or relationship.
Yeah. All right. So let's say we're in a situation and we say, gosh, I really want to do a better job of connecting with this person or this team. Where do we start? What's a good starting place for us?
Well, a great starting point for any team is also a communication activity. It's clarifying the problem. So what are we working on, and where are you at about it? What does success look like? So figuring out what we're working on, figuring out what the end game is, and having a genuine conversation about it, because there are a lot of dynamics already. Somebody wants to be the lead sibling, right, and wants to step out and shine. Somebody else is just that engineer type who's just loves a gritty problem, wants to solve a problem. You know, somebody is an ideator and loves to be in the space of ideas, and someone else is like, let's just get this done because I'm an implementer, I want to execute, I want to make it happen. So I feel like that at the beginning of a project is a great time to begin this dialogue system, which I'd love to share with you, sort of how we do the dialogue.
Yeah, I'm anxious to get into this because it sounds like what I expected you to say when you start down this path was to say, well, you really want to clarify roles and expectations, and that's kind of where you were going. But then you took this turn I didn't expect you to take. You said, but you need to understand what each person wants to get out of this. What's their personal driver? Is it implement? Is it to shine? Is it to kind of get in there and solve the problems? And you don't want to ignore those things because those might be itches that they want scratched and can become very, very itchy and almost rashes. Am I interpreting that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're under the surface and they're operating in powerful ways.
Yeah. Okay. So you hinted that there's a possible process.
There is a possible process
that we could go through. Now,
Yes.
before we get into that, my eye is looking over here at the timer, and Isaac's laughing because we are almost at break.
Oh.
So I can't believe it. Our listeners are going to have to wait till after break for the process. So stay tuned. As soon as we come after break, we're going to talk about how do you implement some of these tools that Melissa's going to share with us to actually improve connection, whether it's with your team, your coworkers, or others. We'll be right back.
The right job, plus the right culture, plus the right boss equals workplace happiness. The number one reason people leave jobs is problems with their boss. A horrible boss can make us dread every Monday, but an amazing boss can make us so excited to work that we'd go in on weekends. Finding your perfect boss is not only possible, it's one of the most impactful steps you can take in crafting your perfect career. Visit theworkplacetherapist.com and click on guides to learn how to find and get your perfect boss, whether that means making the decision to move on or turning your current boss into the perfect leader you want them to be. Our bosses have so much influence over our work and our whole day. Working for the right boss alone can be a winning career strategy.
This is the Brandon Smith Show. Welcome back from break. And today we are talking about communicating to connect. And no matter what that looks like, whether we're the leader and we're trying to communicate to a large group and we're trying to know some of those cues on when people are not being engaged, or we're just trying to connect with other people within our kind of workplace or even outside of our workplace ecosystem. So of course, joining us is my fantastic guest, Melissa Gordon. How are you, Melissa?
I'm great.
Okay, so we've come back from break, and during break, we talked a little bit about this idea of the different types.
Yes.
So add a little more color into these. This was something that we started to go down the path, and I said, hold this, because I really want to hear this, but I think our listeners do too.
This typology comes from an instrument called Foresight. It's F-O-U-R, Sight, S-I-G-H-T, Foresight, and their website is Foresight Online. And we do this assessment with teams. So teams really need to know what is your sweet spot when it comes to working on a project. Leaders need to know, who do I have at the table? Who do I have on the team? So we've got the clarifier. The clarifier asks a lot of questions, never working on the wrong problem. We've got the ideator, a million ideas, not that concerned with what to do with them necessarily, million ideas. The developer, great at honing, burnishing the idea. How will we really get it done? And the implementer, wedding planner is a great example of an implementer. I want to make it happen. I've got the caterer, I've got the flowers, and that's the next time that you met with them, all done. So what we know is that these can be combinations, so you can have a clarifier ideator, for example, but the ideator drives the implementer crazy, because the implementer is like,
can see that.
Come on, let's make it happen. We got a good idea. Why are we still ideating?
And I could even see where the implementer starts to go down a path, and the ideator's like, wait, I got a brand new idea.
And that actually
drive the implementer nuts.
Absolutely. And with my background in film, I saw it all the time, right? Because if you're a producer, you want to lay down the tracks, get everybody there, get them on time. What are the props? How do we break down the scenes? The producer wants lots of lead time. But the creative types on the project, and producers are very creative too, but that's all about, I want the best set, I want the best props, I want I got an idea while I woke up last night, let's not do the shoot here, let's do it here. So it's always with the ideator and the implementer, there's some tension around when do you cut it off.
Is that the main, of those four, is that the main two that are going to be in tension, or can you find other tension within those
You
groups?
can find other tensions. I was working with a school in West Virginia, rural school. They knocked down one building and put two schools together. And in that setting, there was one woman who was a developer. That's the person who hones the idea and makes sure it's really doable. So if you're in film and the director says, I need 44 cavalry in a Civil War setting, horses, suits, outfits, everything, uniforms. And the producer's job is to go figure that out. So in that setting, the producer becomes a developer. How do I actually bring this to life? And some producer might say, you're going to get 4 real live humans, and then we're going to multiply everybody digitally. That's how we're getting 44. So it's that process of taking the idea and looking at the budget, looking at the time frame, looking at the talent, and really making it happen. So this woman in the school in West Virginia, she was outnumbered. There was no one else in the building like her. And she was the one that annoyed everyone because they all wanted to go from, all right, we got an idea, let's get it done. Didn't want to spend a lot of time on that analysis part of it, saw it as analysis paralysis. So each of the dimensions have an implication. It shows up in communication all the time.
So we talked a little bit about now moving down the path of trying to connect better. And you hinted before the break that you had a process for that.
Yes.
Enlighten us. I'm ready to go.
Yes, because all these dynamics are generating all kinds of issues. There are also just the family structure, the triggering that goes on within us. I have a competitive feeling about that person, just like I did with my brother who was competing. I have a feeling of wanting to shine. I have a feeling of wanting to solve a problem. So there are all these things going on in the environment. If we don't know what any of them are, we're just reactive all the time. So the model for really getting to understand what's happening and to bridge connection when you feel disconnection, and sometimes you know why and sometimes you don't. 3 steps. It's MVE.
M as in?
Mirror.
Oh, okay. As in mirror.
V as in validate.
V as in validate.
E as in empathize.
E as in empathize. Excellent.
Yeah. So in mirroring, what we're going to do is repeat what the other person said. Not freelance, not paraphrase, but really repeat what the person said. Not like a parrot, but truly, did I get you is the key question. So you'd say something, I'd mirror you back, and then I'd say, did I get you? And then you'd say, yes, but, and I'd say, is there more? Yeah, there's more. So mirror has 2 questions to it, is, did I get you? And is there more? And what we find is that when people really get heard, when they get a chance to be heard without you jumping in, correcting, asking questions, just hearing them, it's powerful.
Wow. I could see us using that tool in life.
In life, in relationships, this comes out of relationship counseling.
Wow.
The concept was created by Harville Hendrix, who wrote a book called Getting the Love You Want. I think he was on Oprah 16 times in the 80s. He's about 80-something now.
Wow.
Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix, the Imago Dialogue. And we're taking it out of that setting and taking it into the workplace to say, can I really get you? Can I really understand what's happening here? Let's not rush to solving the problem first. Let's first just get what's going on and reconnect.
So that's mirror. So mirror is just being able to really make sure that you're understanding what that person's saying, and they're getting a sense of that.
Yeah. So if someone's if someone's having an issue, here's an example. My daughter's coming home from college. I know that she's not going to take care of the dog because I always did before, but I really don't have time, and I really want her to do her part. So I convey to her, I have this issue. She mirrors me back. She says, is there more? And I get to say, yeah, I want you to have an amazing time home this summer, but I really want us to get along. Great, beautiful. Validating then says, Mom, it makes sense to me that you have this concern. It makes sense to me. And how many times have you had an issue with someone and you just wish they would say, that makes sense that you feel that way. Okay, I get it. Instead of, I'm defensive. I want to point out why you're wrong.
Got it. See, when in my head, I was thinking to myself, okay, well, how is validate different than mirroring? But you clarified that really well, and I think it's an important distinction. Mirroring is just saying, okay, so what I heard you say is ... Validating is, and I get it.
I get it.
And I understand it, and I empathize with you.
Empathize is going to be our third step because validating is like
folks, I'm blending them all together, and they're actually, it's like I'm putting them all in the stew, and they're all separate, important ingredients. So let's just keep me in line. This is good.
well, validating, think of it as a head thing. It's not saying I agree with you. It's not saying you're right. It's not saying anything. It's saying if I put myself in your shoes, it makes sense that you feel that way. So Natasha can put herself in Mom's shoes and say, yeah, it makes sense that Mom feels this way. The empathy part comes in where you say, gee, now we're into the feelings. Gee, it must have felt stressful to you, Mom, looking forward to me coming home this summer, but then being worried about how to manage everything. I feel for you about that, Mom. I really get that. So we move from mirroring to validating that it makes sense, that it's reasonable, to I feel for you. I get what it must be like to be in your shoes. Does that make sense? The 3 steps?
Yeah, I think I got it.
Yeah.
I think I got it. So when we do that well, why is that such a good thing? What is it? What do you see happen in those relationships that maybe are at a crossroads, but then when they do that MVE, it breaks it apart?
We really don't know what's going on with somebody when they've shoved off from the table, or they've gone silent, or they haven't made the deadline, or they didn't do their part. We start to feel triggered inside, like, I don't like what's going on here. I'm not sure what's going on here. We really don't have a lot of tools in the work environment to say, first let's unpack what's happening. And then we can get to the problem solving. But you get great information when you go deeper. When you mirror and then you say, is there more about that? Usually what happens is the person goes, yes, there is more about that. I'm actually really frustrated about this. Or I really feel like one of my favorite things is no good deed goes unpunished. So very often you're working on a project with something, you've done a lot of work, it doesn't get used, and you don't know what happened to it, and there's no communication about that. It's so common for people to feel that way. With MVE, we're able to say, so what happened for you there? Oh, okay. That's the process.
Oh, super cool. So one more question around this, and then I'm noticing our time is already growing short. What if the person hasn't said anything? So they're just sitting there with their arms crossed, looking kind of grumpy, pushed away from the table. So they're not really giving you anything to mirror to. In the therapy world, so if I go back to my clinical therapy training, there was something called attending to the obvious.
Yes.
Is that another form of mirroring where you say, hey, I noticed you've pulled away from the table, your arms are crossed?
Yes, and we're being very descriptive, and we're not making stories up about why they're doing it. We're saying, hey, I'm noticing that you didn't talk a lot in the meeting today. What I know about you is you're very creative and you have a lot of ideas, but you were quiet today. So I'd love to know more about that. Here's a great phrase. I'm curious about ... I'm curious about that.
I'm curious about ...
Yeah. ...
I think I could use that a lot more. And I'm a big fan of curiosity. Curiosity is one of my favorite words in the whole modern language.
You know, Brandon, it's really about an invitation an invitation for you to come out some more. I'm saying, I'm curious about what happened here. I'm interested in you. Somehow you want to convey, I'm for you. So it isn't just like, let's get the project done. That psychological safety element that Google found is huge. What the rest of the elements on that study revealed is that the most successful teams have each other's backs. They're deeply interested in each other's success as well as in their own. They want the project to succeed, but they really know that we're a team and we're going to work together again. So it's very much about how do we create a cocoon of safety while challenging each other and innovating. So MVE can help us with all the stuff that's sort of in between those very specific activities that we have to do as a team.
I love it. It's simple and elegant, yet so powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving towards the close of our show, and I ask all my guests this question. If you had one good tip for us, a life hack on how we can make our lives that much better and that much more free from dysfunction, what would it be?
I just love the question, is there more about that?
I love that too. Is there more about that? I just, because I cannot see how someone would, I'm sure there's some cases where people would say no. But the majority of the time, I think people are going to go, well, actually, yeah. And they're going to add a little more.
And when someone says, no, there isn't, what they're conveying is, I've been heard. I've really been heard about this. And when you get that, there's a deep honoring that happens. And people are just psychologically more available for what's next.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So if people want to learn more about you and what you're up to and get connected with you, where can they go? What are some good paths for them?
I think Twitter is a great place for our listeners to go because we're publishing content all the time, not just our own, but anything and everything that we see that has to do with communication and with connection. So we're at Echecom, ECHECOMM. We also have a LinkedIn page. Echelon Communicate is the name of the company page on LinkedIn, and we're also publishing content there. Just everything in the world that we find that would help somebody communicate more effectively in business or as public speakers is what we're publishing there.
Fantastic. And if they say, gosh, I would really love to, learn more how you could help me and even sign up for a program, any places they could go for that?
We have training workshops. We have something we do in town called Pitch Present, which is like Shark Tank for speakers. It's a lot of fun. We have a group called Speak Lab where people come in and practice their communication. We also do a lot of work with startups. So a bunch of the incubators around town, we do pitch coaching. So our focus is pretty broad about communication. But on the subject of communicating to connect in this interpersonal way, I have a handout. I'd love to make that available to your listeners. And I'm happy to receive an email saying, hey, I want that. My email is Melissa, MELISSA, at EchelonCommunicate.com. And if you'd like to have that handout and begin to practice, we would love to I went to a program run by Harville Hendricks, who wrote the book on this, in Dallas. And basically what they were doing was increasing the relational quotient of the city of Dallas by teaching this tool. So I'm all about that.
That's
I'd love people
cool.
to learn it.
I love that. It's a great mission. Fantastic. Well, Melissa, I appreciate you. You're an absolute gift, and thank you for coming on the show and sharing your gifts with us and helping to spread the good news to everybody who was listening and viewing today. And so, of course, continue the fight every week on Sunday evenings at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, where we drop a new show, and you can catch it on iTunes, thebrandonsmithshow.com. If you haven't checked out my website, The Workplace Therapist, please do. My web guru, Kristen, has updated the whole thing. So there's more content for you, more resources for you to just explore and get more tools to help you have a life that much more free from dysfunction. So until next week in our next show, have a great week and an awesome life.